We finally made it. After 5 videos, we're officially at the end of the Macross 7 era. We've moved mountains, danced on the planet dance over 60 times, so it's time we go out with a bang. An explosion, maybe even a Dynamite one. Macross Dynamite 7 was a 4-episode OVA series that was released in 1997 as both the conclusion to the Macross 7 story and a 15th anniversary celebration to the Macross franchise as a whole. Not only was doing an epilogue to their most popular entry at the time a no-brainer from a financial standpoint, but Macross 7 was sort of in need for a proper conclusion. The TV ending wasn't bad. Basara achieved what he set out to do the entire series in a satisfying way, but after that it just sorta ended. We had no indication on what was in store for any of the characters' futures. SDF and Plus had satisfying endings while also laying out clear paths for the characters' futures. The SDF crew would preserve and spread humanity's reach throughout the galaxy, while Isamu and Myung would mend their relationship while continuing to pursue what they love. But for Macross 7, who knew what was next for Basara? I mean, he spent his whole life trying to see how far he could take his music, so how do you get further than saving the entire galaxy with it? He already moved that mountain, so what now? Despite getting so much Macross 7 content afterwards, it all took place in between certain events of the show. So Dynamite 7 is our first true exposure to a post-Proto-Devlin world. Considering the huge fanfare surrounding Macross 7, they knew they couldn't screw this up, so they pulled out all the stops production-wise. Not only was everyone who worked on the original show brought back, but this time they chose an OVA format, as that allowed for them to make the animation as beautiful as could be without having to worry about TV restrictions. They even brought back some people from the Macross Plus side of things, like Yoko Kanno, who was in charge of composing the final song. The expectations weren't just high on the production team, but they're high on me too. I've made 4 videos on this shit. I can't fumble this at the finish line. So with that all said, let's talk about Robotech Dyna shit! The OVA begins 1 year after the ending of the original series, with Basara writing a letter in his apartment. We can assume this to be a farewell letter because Guvava is really sad about it. We also get a glimpse of the flower that was grown with song energy, once again being used as a metaphor for Basara's character arc, now having completely blossomed and changed appearance, showcasing how Basara has grown since we last seen him. Him leaving is also shown in the opening, where we see him wandering around the planet of Zola singing to the locals. And yes, this opening is fucking incredible. I mean, sure, it's long as hell. I thought it was gonna end at several points, but it kept going, but who cares? Dynamite Explosion is a certified Macross classic. The stellar visual presentation doesn't just extend to the opening though, the entire OVA just looks fantastic. Which is a relief, cause this is the last traditionally animated Macross project before the switch to digital in Zero. And while I do believe the digital animation of later entries has its own merits, I'd be lying if I said I won't miss the classic style. As for why Basara is leaving and venturing to random planets, I think it's as simple as him trying to find a new source of inspiration. In the TV series, Civil helped open his eyes to how vast the galaxy is, and considering Basara is essentially a force of nature, constantly moving, trying to break new boundaries with his music, I believe exploring the galaxy is a sensible direction for his character. Obviously he cares about the people on City 7, but he doesn't want to stunt his growth by being confined to one location. He did what needed to be done, and now it's time to move on, with the adventure depicted in this OVA being the first of many. And what a crazy start it is, because he immediately gets caught up in an ongoing heist, dodging bullets and everything. In typical Basara fashion, he begins singing a new song called The New Frontier. Is this Kawamori level foreshadowing at play? A red-haired Star Patrol officer named Liza points a stun gun at him before knocking his ass off the bridge, thus breaking his guitar. This is just classic Macross 7, she just needs to see the vision. After the heist is over, he's found by a young girl named Elma, who explains how the criminals from before were poachers trying to steal spaceship parts so they could catch the elusive space whale. I don't know why they went for a Moby Dick inspired story about Basara trying to save the space whales, but it's cool. But anyways, as Basara slips out of the house due to his injuries, he spots Elma's father, a giant Zolan known as Graham. While helping pick up his guitar, she notices the signature on it and starts freaking out as she recognizes him as Neki Basara, Fire Bomber. Now, she isn't as huge of a fan as me and my boy Pedro, but I guess she's still a fan. She even sings a Zolan language rendition of Planet Dance, which I guess it counts. We cut back to City 7, where Mylene is stuck up holding a Fire Bomber concert by herself. While she does a fine enough job, they can't help but wonder where Basara is. But then, something scary happens. Vivitas' drumstick finally breaks, yet another signifier that it's likely over for Fire Bomber as we know it. While visiting a local shop to replace his guitar strings, the owner warns Basara to stay away from Graham. He's supposedly become dangerous and hell-bent on killing the infamous big white whale in order to revenge his wife who was killed by it, even making his body bigger for better proficiency. Basara isn't the type to judge so quickly though. He notices they don't have the strings he wants and he dips mid-conversation. Later that day, Graham brings him a whale's whisker to use for strings, a gesture that shows that he really might not be as bad as people make him out to be. As for why he did this, I'd assume he has some level of respect towards his music. As they mentioned beforehand, his wife also used to be a singer. With his new guitar, Basara pops the fuck off singing about how awesome space whales are, completely ignoring Elma, who's begging him to mentor her, and then he gets shot at. I kinda miss saying, well, oh, here comes the Proto-Devlin. These guys are lame, they're just a bunch of poachers trying to steal Graham's equipment. Graham fends them off and shows his darker side by having to hold back on killing them, but whoa, here comes the space whales. It just doesn't hit the same. Basara hops into Elma's mom's old Valkyrie to join the fray, serving as a grim reminder of what happened to the VF-19. This leads us into our typical Macross 7 fare. Basara sinks in the middle of a deadly situation, except this time we actually have some cool action of Graham trying to catch the whale. Space Patrol also shows up, with us getting the reveal that Liza is another one of Graham's daughters. It was also at this point where my stepdad walked into the room, saw me watching this, and was like, this kind of reminds me of, what was it? Oh yeah, Inspector Gadget. I have no idea what he was talking about. Anyways, Graham and Basara get owned, the whales get away, and Gamlin begins trying to track him down, as he notices how much Basara's absence is affecting Mylene. Seriously, during her performance, where she was screwing up and stuff, but Gamlin was just giving her this really fucking scary, death glare. I don't know what his problem was. Basara gets treated in a doohickey slime bed, because Macross can just never have a normal hospital bed. Liza gets pulled aside by a researcher named Lawrence, who specializes in observing the behavioral patterns of the whales, noting that Basara's song has caused their brains to show a wavelength never before seen, which helps in a case he's been building to prove that the whales are actually intelligent life forms and not just globs of energy. Liza calls bullshit and dips, so Lawrence goes to pay respects to Basara himself, leaving behind a recording of his music. And since it's Basara, the music provides him with enough energy to get back up, albeit in a dazed state. He makes his way back to Elma's place, where she's singing Zolan Planet Dance again, where he's visibly hellbent on finding Graham. Elma tags along on the search, but halfway through he collapses from exhaustion, leading to a funny montage of her trying to carry Basara while singing Totsugeki Love Heart. She eventually brings him to an old hot spring that has healing properties. All while Liza and the rest of Star Patrol are fighting against the poachers. The ongoing battle gives Basara these insane visions that snap him out of the trance, starting to pop off as the whales have become the new mountain to move. Graham was also hiding in the hot springs, I guess. His cock is probably huge. Maybe that's what inspired Basara to start singing about the beauty of nature in a new song called Feel the Universe. It's a really chill scene. You know what isn't chill? The Mylene subplot. Jesus Christ, I guess we have to talk about this. Considering the whole Basara leaves Firebomber setup, I thought her story was gonna be her accepting the responsibility as Firebomber's new lead vocalist. In terms of song energy, she's always been one step behind Basara, so I assume this OVA would have shown her being a bit insecure about that. Maybe tracking down Basara in order to bring him back, and learning to let it go and accept that she's good enough. But nope, here's a music producer drugging and sexually assaulting her. It doesn't even lead up to anything. Guvava gets Vivitas and Ray to save her, and then Ray's all like, well, I guess you learned something. What the fuck does that even mean? She's a 16-year-old girl who just got drugged and nearly raped. What did she learn? This is character assassination. Ray wouldn't say that. I don't even know what to say. I've defended Macross 7 for a lot of shit, but I really can't do it this time. These scenes genuinely might be the worst in the entire franchise. They contributed nothing to the story. I mean, I guess it was to show, like, oh, that there's some corruption in the music industry, some music producers abuse their power, but why now? That has nothing to do with the main plot about Basara leaving and Wales. It really sucks, because the rest of this OVA is phenomenal. It's a fantastic send-off to Basara's character. And if you guys didn't want to give Mylene that same level of respect, then honestly, you'd be better off just not including her much at all. All it did was create a huge stain on what would have otherwise been perfection. But fine, maybe I'm jumping the gun a bit, and they give her an amazing moment later on. For now, let's wipe our memories, pretend that didn't happen, and get back to the good stuff. Graham takes Basara and Elma to a gravesite, which he explains is for whales who have fallen. Alongside it is ancient text left behind by Zolan ancestors. Upon reading it, they deduce that whales ordinarily live for 7,000 years, while the great white whale has been alive for 7 million years, guiding his kin to the gravesite so they can rest peacefully. Still though, in order to justify his hunt, Graham explains that due to its age and seeing countless loved ones die, the whale likely wants to be put out of its misery. This rubs Basara the wrong way, and he straight up tells Graham that he's simply projecting his own feelings onto the whales. We have gone from Basara saves the whales to Basara deals with suicide. This is an insane ending. Getting back to Liza and the poachers, she managed to steal one of their Batroids, and sneaks into their warehouse that's playing Fire Bomber American. Yes, so within the Macross lore, there's an American group plagiarizing Firebomber's work and claiming it to be their own. And their producer is heavily rumored to be none other than my arch enemy, Lin Kaifun. They even made real Firebomber American CDs that cover just about every song in the TV show, but I'm not buying those, I'm not supporting Lin Kaifun. Anyways, while eavesdropping on the poachers, Liza hears that they're planning to buy reaction weaponry to straight up nuke the whales. Then she gets snitched on by a robot. This leads us into a pretty cool escape sequence where she succeeds after stealing a nearby fold booster. She crashes back onto Zola nearby Basara, Elma, and Graham, who are having a deep discussion about Basara's motives and why he sings. When she spots Basara, she's baffled as to how he's recovered so quickly, and also asks him why he keeps singing. Elma says it's because he's the leader of Firebomber, it's just what he does. Which is a name Liza recognizes, as their fight against the Proto-Devlin has become widespread news across the galaxy. This is a huge relief to her, as it means he'll be able to find a solution to the whale dilemma as well. When she explains the poacher's plan to nuke the whales, Graham is all like, I gotta do that shit first. I saw the whale's eyes, we both wanna die surely. Dude, just go to therapy. You don't have to project your suicidal thoughts onto a space whale, come on. Once the whales arrive back on the scene, Liza guides Basara to a Space Patrol docking station, where he can borrow a Valkyrie, sing a song, and stop her father from killing himself. Mylene also sets off to go help Gamlen find Basara, so maybe she is gonna get an awesome moment at the end. We have reached the last episode of Macross 7 anything. This makes me sad. You know, one day we're gonna hear Planet Dance for the last time, and we might not even know it's the last. With Basara and Mylene now gone, Ray and Fafitas are forced to have a concert with cardboard stands, which somehow doesn't piss off any of the fans. They actually love it. Dude, Firebomber's gonna have one of the most chill fan bases in the whole music industry. I mean, Miku fans can't even handle TVs. Back on Zola, Basara, Graham, and the Poachers are caught in a three-way struggle for the whales. While observing the conflict, a small group of whales heading towards Earth captures Lawrence's attention, where Elma believes they're heading for the whale graveyard so they can die in peace. The descending whales pass by Gamlen, who hops back into his Valkyrie and is finally able to track down Basara thanks to the song Energy. After a bit of action, the Poachers finally fire the nuke, which, surprise surprise, it's Macross 7, reaction weapons are completely useless. With Graham and the Poachers left hopeless, Basara begins singing the final song of the Macross 7 saga. A moment that's symbolized in the Firebomber concert, where Fafitas finally throws her sticks and rejects the demand for an encore. Almost like the show itself is telling us fans, this is it. No more Macross 7 content, let us move the fuck on. The final song in question being Angel Voice, the one handled by Macross Plus music producer Yoko Kanno. And she went all in. This is easily one of my favorite songs in the entire franchise. The song is very different from most of Basara's others, being a lot more calm, which is a good reflection of how much his character has matured and mellowed out throughout the series. I specifically like the part that can be roughly translated to, "There's something I believe, though I'm called a fool for it, the dream I had that day hasn't changed." It just perfectly sums up Basara's arc. He's just this unstoppable force of nature, changing the galaxy with his music one step at a time. Even in this scene, he has both old and new friends helping him out, Gamlen finally arriving to provide backup, and even Graham ramming the Poacher's battleship to get them away from the whales. And best of all, the whale itself even begins to sing alongside Basara, showing that yes, these creatures do have hearts. And then, the white whale begins emitting red spores, while the dying whales from below emit white spores, the two blending together to create new whales, thus continuing the circle of life. Once that's done, the whales leave, the Poachers are arrested, Fafitas and Ray accept the band is over, and Graham finally decides to give up his hunt. Not only are the whales kind of unkillable, but Basara proved him wrong. The whale wasn't looking to die, it was instead looking to create new life. And in this path of vengeance and projecting, he's neglected what really matters to him. His own well-being, and his relationship with his children. With his work yet again done, Basara sets off for his next adventure, giving Elma one last piece of advice. Being a great singer like him is simply singing however, whenever you want. He finally takes off, Gamlen follows after him, and they both pass by Mylene, who missed the entire plot. Great, so they didn't do anything with her character at the last minute. Graham looks to the sky and says Dynamite, and they play the ED that shows us that Basara has breached into the real world. God help us. Macross Dynamite 7 is a fantastic OVA. If you close your eyes, plug your ears, and go la 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 at the Mylene scenes, that is. Still though, despite how terrible that scene was, it didn't last nearly long enough to ruin the entire thing. The focus was still primarily on sending off Basara's character, and that's something they did very well. While seeing him leave behind the characters and world we've spent 49 plus episodes getting to know was kinda sad, at the end of the day, it was what was best for him. And in a way, it's what's best for the Macross franchise as a whole. I'll always love and remember this series, but Macross has so many other stories to be told. We can't just bound ourselves to Basara forever. He needs to do his own thing, and we need to do ours. It's like when SML Baby Shrek went off to college. It sucks, but his borrowed Valkyrie's gotta spread its wings. Oh yeah, he just took the Valkyrie and was like, put it on Ray's tab. You know what, maybe he was a jerk after all. Anyways, Basara isn't just saying goodbye to his friends and the Macross fans, he's saying goodbye to you guys, the Starlight viewers. The Macross 7 era of my channel has been the most insane era of my YouTube career. I mean, this is the most consistent upload schedule I've ever had. I know some of you might find the Macross 7 topic a bit tiring, and honestly I have too at points. Like, what the fuck was I supposed to say about the DVD shorts? But it'll always be a time I look at with extreme fondness. Whether it was getting to hear people's thoughts, watching the Planet Dance counter reach insane heights, or losing my mind over the stupid Proto-Devlin names. I'm glad you guys were willing to see it through, and I hope you continue to do so in my next video, which is Macross 0. 0 doesn't come after 7.